Embassy, and of course the students of Faculty of Social and Political Science. And on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to extend our appreciations for your presence today. Okay. And allow me to read the agenda for today's event. These general lectures will be divided into 2 sessions. The first session is the presentations by Ibu Joel Jenny, and the second sessions will be the discussions, so in which we would like to invite your active participations, active engagement in the discussions with Ibu Jenny, because this is a precious and memorable opportunity for us to have this kind of general lectures. And without further ado, I think we will, before we get into the main agenda, I would like to invite the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Science to give the opening remarks for today's event. For Bapak Punia, I would like to invite you to the podium.
Thank you. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua, nama budaya dan salam kebajikan. Selamat pagi, good morning, welcome for Her Excellency Mr. Joel Jenny, the Director for Southeast Asia and Pacific, United Kingdom Region, Commonwealth and Development Office, Mr. Winda Listiani from the British Council, and distinguished and colleagues. I would like to greet international relations students and really appreciated for you enthusiasm to join this special session. Hopeful you will get the insight about the topic discussion today. On behalf of Faculty of Political and Social Science, Udayana University, we are glad to share and build agreement for future cooperation with United Kingdom. We view that the significance of United Kingdom in Indo-Pacific tile will build common understanding with the related state actor, including Indonesia, to create a platform for strategic partnership in the current situation. We are interconnected with national issue from political until climate change, education, and social issue. This current state will request the collaboration between all stakeholders to build common good. Science will be factual for use to selfie to issue unilaterally. We are looking forward to building mutual networking with United Kingdom government is as however, for you is future collaboration in the connect and education development with United Kingdom. We call learn many best practices from you said, man we will profit the insight for you to confront our insight. It is our pleasure to hosting this prestige session. Now I would like to announce that General Lecture about UK-Indonesia relation is possibility open. Thank you. We on behalf on the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Science Udayana University would like to thank you for visiting. Thank you. Gracias.
So we are going to continue to the next session. So for Bapak Dekan, Bapak Din, would you like to be on the stage, and also Ibu Jenny, yeah. Because we are going to have the token of appreciation exchange. Okay, so by the exchanging of the token of appreciations, we do hope that the collaborations between Udayana University, particularly with the Faculty of Social and Political Science and the UK government, will grow and develop in the near future. Okay, please be... Okay, thank you. So, so for Bapak Dekan, if you have another agenda, you may leave the, and also for Ibu Vice Dean, you may leave the room. Boleh meninggalkan ruangan, nggih, Bapak, jika ada agenda lain. Okay. I would like to introduce you first. Okay. Okay. Dear all participants, now we have come to the main agenda, and I feel so honored to introduce to you all our distinguished speaker today, Ibu Joel Jenny. Welcome, Ibu Joel Jenny. And before we listen to the presentations, allow me to read brief introductions about Ibu Joel Jenny. Joel Jenny is currently the Director for Southeast Asia and Pacific at the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. And Ibu Joel has spent her career at the nexus between international security, diplomacy, and development. And since joining the UK government in 2004, she has worked for the UK Department for International Development, the Foreign Office, and the Cabinet Office. And she has had posting at the UN, where she served at the UK missions to the UN, and at the EU External Action Service, where she spent 5 years as Director, Security Policy and Conflict Preventions. And Ibu Jenny holds an MA in International Security from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy in Boston, USA, and was a research associate at Harvard University. So I think we have a very precious opportunity, dear all students. So let us listen to the presentations from Ibu Jenny. Ibu Jenny for 20 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to you, but also I look forward to your questions in the second part of this lecture. Like you, I was once a student. I studied international relations and I'll be very happy to engage in any questions you would like to ask me. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about Indonesia. Then I will talk about the wider Indo-Pacific region. That is what I cover for my work. And then I would like to talk about what the United Kingdom wants and intends to do in this part of the world. And finally, I'd like to talk about some of the shared opportunities and challenges that the United Kingdom and Indonesia have in common. So let me start with Indonesia. And there's a lot that makes this country an amazing place. And I remember very fondly when I was able to visit your country when I was a student and traveled around the country, and how amazingly beautiful it is. Your volcanoes, the rainforest, the waterfalls, the beaches, everything that makes the environment so appealing in this country. But also, of course, the many cultures that span all the islands of Indonesia, your different languages, your customs, your dances, your food, your coffee, and so much more. But I think one of the most amazing things about Indonesia is really the sense of future in this country. You have a young, vibrant country, the world's third largest democracy, which everybody expects to become one of the top 5 global economies. This year we have seen Indonesia step up to the world stage as a global convener during its presidency of the G20. Russia's invasion in Ukraine impacted the G20 significantly and made it more challenging for Indonesia to deliver the agenda it wanted to deliver in its plans. But your diplomats and other representatives worked tirelessly to find a way through those geopolitical tensions to ensure that the G20 could continue to be an important forum for discussion of global challenges such as food and energy security, which of course have become so important for everybody around the world in recent times, but also to talk about preparation for pandemics. And after this successful chairmanship of the G20, of course now Indonesia is taking the chair of ASEAN, and we expect will again be a very competent and very forward-looking chair, taking the relationship of Southeast Asian countries with the rest of the world forward. I said I was also going to talk more broadly about the Indo-Pacific region. So of course, the Indo-Pacific is home to half of the world's people and half of global growth. It will have a huge role to play in the global economy for decades and centuries to come. For example, as a rules-setting community, and the most recent example is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. Such a long name, I always struggle to say it. We always say the CTPPP, which is the main trade agreement, which will become one of the largest trade agreements globally in terms of its GDP. The Indo-Pacific is, of course, also a key hub for innovation, science, technology, new development, everything exciting that the future has to offer. And is, for that reason, a natural partner for the United Kingdom. And that's what I now would like to talk about, which is that the United Kingdom recognizes how important the Indo-Pacific has become and how much this region will be shaping the future. And this is the reason why we have already responded to those shifts in order to be more present and more engaged in the Indo-Pacific. So in 2021, we published our integrated review of security, defense, development, and foreign policy. This was a review that our Prime Minister commissioned to think about the place of the UK in the world and to look at how the world has been changing. It was the biggest review that the UK has done sort of internationally, and it really sets out our vision for the UK's role internationally until 2030. And that review recognized that we have deep and long-standing relationships, but also major interests, and that we need to work more closely with countries across the Indo-Pacific region. What we want to be in our engagement is a reliable, long-term partner, and we're deeply committed to having that deep relationship with the region and, of course, with Indonesia, and to engage our to increase our engagement in the world. So a key part of that is to build strong partnership. No country today can address the challenges of growth, of security, of development, of innovation on their own. So we've really built our international engagement on the principle of partnering with other nations. One of the things we have done as a result of that review, that integrated review, was to apply to become a dialogue partner of ASEAN. And I'm very pleased to say that we got the support of all the ASEAN countries, and we were able to become, last summer, a dialogue partner. We see that really as an opportunity to support ASEAN's central role in regional stability and prosperity, and to enable sustainable development in Southeast Asia. So as part of becoming a dialogue partner, we've agreed a plan of action, and we will now start looking to implement it, and it will shape the activities that the United Kingdom do over the next 5 years in this region. We've also signed a comprehensive strategic partnership with India, and we have agreed a strategic framework with the Republic of Korea. We've joined a new initiative in the Pacific, which is called Partners in the Blue Pacific, and which is aimed at really bringing donors together to better support the countries in the Pacific. And we've launched with the United States and Australia the AUKUS partnership. Some of the other things that we have done since we've agreed this integrated review, including signing a new trade agreement with New Zealand and with Australia. And we're working on a similar trade agreement with India. And we've signed new trade deals with Singapore, with Vietnam, with the Republic of Korea, and with Japan, as well as having a digital economy agreement with Singapore. We're particularly keen to work on digital issues, digital economies that we see as being key to the future. With Indonesia specifically, we've established the UK-Indonesia Joint Economic and Trade Committee. We call it the JETCO. which includes sort of an annual meeting between our ministers coming together to review all the aspects of our trade relationship and how we can deepen it and take it forward. And we are in the final stages of negotiating to become a member of the CTPPP, with the most impossible acronym, but I did manage to say it without tripping, so I'm pleased. So the CTPPP, twice, is worth £9 trillion, but it's also seen, as I mentioned earlier, as a body that will set the rules for trade globally. And that's as much as the size of the economy, it is this rules-making role that we think is really important and to which we want to contribute. We've also deepened our security and defense relationships. So we had something called the Korea Strike Group, which was sort of a deployment of our main ships across the region. Last year, they engaged with 40 countries across the region. And we have 2 offshore patrol vessels that are now permanently based in this region. And we have all sorts of defense and security engagements, trainings, exercises, and opportunity to exchange with key partners across the region. For example, one of the things that we're really working closely with countries in the region is around maritime law and freedom of navigation, which is so important to sustain trade, sustain stability, sustain friendly relationship between nations. So we work with countries across the region to understand and apply the UNCLOS, which is the main UN treaty governing the law of the sea. In this context, Indonesia is a priority country for our tilt to the Indo-Pacific. And it means not just engaging in Jakarta, but really engaging across Indonesia with outreach partners, including my colleague here at the front, Winda, whom I encourage you all to talk to after this session, who is our representative here in Bali. And we have other colleagues present in East Java, West Java, Central Java, and Yogyakarta. We're determined to use these resources to grow our bilateral relationship with Indonesia even further. And we've agreed a UK-Indonesia partnership roadmap, which was negotiated earlier this year, and that really sets up what we want to achieve between our 2 countries going forward. So in total, we have 52 embassies, high commissions, consulates across the Indo-Pacific, and that includes 4 new ones that we opened in recent years, including one to the ASEAN in Jakarta. So the review that I was mentioning, the integrated review, also looked at the importance of having an open and resilient international order. And what we mean by that is an international order where global and multilateral institutions are able to defend the rule of law, including protecting human rights, enabling fair and open trade, and managing and de-escalating tensions when they appear between nations. We believe that having rules of the games that are fair and laws that everybody supports and the international architecture around the UN Charter is absolutely critical to growth, to peace, and to stability. And we want to work with partners such as Indonesia to continue to sustain that open international order. We use some of our strength to promote that. As the UK, I think you know, We are a member of the UN Security Council, one of the 5 permanent members. We are one of the members of the G7. We're one of the members of the G20. And all those are fora that we use to promote a stable, rules-based international order. Let me say maybe just a few more words about what we think we can bring when we engage internationally. So we are the 6th largest economy in the world. We've just been overtaken by India, who has become the 5th largest economy in the world. We are really innovating internationally on the digital economy because we believe that the digital economy is really the road to the future, and that's why that's one of the areas in which we support and partner with Indonesia. And we have a large number of tech unicorns, so new tech companies that shape the tech sector, with 77 tech companies valued at $1 billion or more. We really major on science and technology, and that's one of the areas that I think we're well recognized internationally for what we have been doing sort of through the years on science and technology. We've got 99 Nobel Prize laureates. We're home to leading medical research, as we have seen with the extraordinarily fast development of the COVID vaccines by Oxford University and the AstraZeneca vaccines. And the aim there was really to enable the whole world to have access to cheap, affordable vaccination that are now being used globally. We play our parts in leading global diplomacy. We've got the 4th largest diplomatic network internationally. And we were the hosts for the UN climate talks, the COP26, which we led in 2021. And I think, to be honest, what we're often best known for is much more our cultural assets. So I'm sure you're all familiar with Harry Potter, the Crown Peaky Blinders, Take That, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Coldplay, Ed Sheeran. And I think most of the time what I hear everywhere where I go is the football Premier League, which is usually what really people are excited about when I talk about the United Kingdom. But we also have the British Council, which operates in 100 countries around the world. And we offer all sorts of scholarship for students who want to come to the UK, including the Shivning scholarships and other kinds of scholarship. People, I think, want to come to our top universities in Oxford and Cambridge, but also the other universities. And we were just discussing before this lecture with the Vice Chancellor here, what are the opportunities to deepen the cooperation with this university and to make everybody more familiar with the opportunities to apply for scholarship to go to the UK. So I said I would talk about Indonesia and the UK, but I also wanted to talk about some of the global challenges that Indonesia and the UK face collectively with the rest of the world and on which we want to work together. And of course, the first one I'm going to talk about is how to avoid catastrophic climate change and to rebuild economies and build economies that are more sustainable in a context where climate pressures will become ever more present. Climate change, I think without doubt, is the biggest challenge that we face. We've already seen the impact of the heating that's happened in many countries, and we're seeing more extreme weather events, floods, rising sea levels, heat waves, and wildfires. And these impacts are happening much sooner and are much more extreme than what the scientists had predicted through climate modeling. What we're seeing with those impacts are what's happening with just 1 degree of average warming today. 1 degree Celsius is what we have seen, and yet we are already seeing very disturbing effects. A recent study in Australia found that average warming in Australia is already 1.5 degrees, so well above that average. And at the UN climate conference, COP21 in Paris in 2015, all the countries agreed that we should aim for 1.5 degrees Celsius as being the target for warming and not beyond. If you take some of the small countries and islands, for example, the Prime Minister of Barbados described that 2 degrees of warming is a death sentence for many small countries. And yet, on current projection, we will not meet 1.5 degrees. We're actually very much on course for 2.4 degrees of global heating, which is well above what any of the climate modeling say can be manageable. So significant and immediate emission reductions are needed to reduce by 43% by 2030 to have any chance of holding the 1.5 degree target. I think at 1.5, sorry, my iPad's playing up. I knew it was going to happen. I was going to try to use the iPad and not the paper to be more environmental friendly, but it's a bit of a challenge still. So we've said repeatedly sort of the impact that this is going to have, and we need to achieve much more progress. And in that context, I really want to applaud Indonesia, because the Indonesian government has made real progress and have set really ambitious targets on reducing emissions, particularly in the forestry and land use sectors, with a target of making that sector a net carbon sink by 2030. Indonesia's goal to reach net zero by 2060 or sooner is also really welcome. And we also welcome Indonesia's ambition to reduce emissions in the energy sector by phasing out the use of coal for electricity generation, and to become a world leader in renewable power, tapping into the vast potential for solar, geothermal, and many other forms of low-carbon energy. So the UK and Indonesia have several partnerships in this area. We have a program which is called Mentari, Low Carbon Energy Partnership, which has been running since 2020. And we have a lot of other sort of initiatives and programs in relation to climate that we discussed at the G20 summit here in Bali. Energy transition, as well as tackling the climate emergency, helps us grow our economies, reduce poverty, increase energy security, and improve people's lives. And this is why we're very keen to work with the UK. So I've spoken about the climate challenge. There's a lot more that I could say. Actually, there's a lot more in my speech, but I will cut short here because I'm happy to come back to that in the questions. I would like to move to the second challenge that I wanted to mention, because I think it's very relevant here, which is around education. Our economies, our societies are changing, so we need new skills and knowledge. You're the future of it. But a lot of people need to reskill, they need to retool, they need to equip themselves. We know it's a top goal of PAC President Joko Widodo. And that's why I'm here now, because we want to support Indonesia and your president's call in education. So Indonesia is one of the top 5 priority countries for our international education champion. And we see our dynamic and world-class education system as part of our collaborative partnership with Indonesia. We've got a working group with the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research to look at what more we can do. Just last year, we awarded 50 Chevening scholarships. And again, I hope many of you will apply in the future. 297 Indonesian students are currently studying in the UK through the Campus Merdeka, which is the Indonesian government's new scholarship program. And there are all sorts of other robust partnerships between UK and Indonesian higher education institutions, including research and others in the science and technology that I'm happy again to say more about after this lecture. We want to expand opportunity in Indonesia, so we also have a future females business school to train up female entrepreneurs. Feel very strongly about this one. And we have a tech hub to empower and tech to empower programs to really use the digital access programs and all those others in the technology sector to really sort of look to the future. Finally, the third challenge that I would talk about is how to level up our societies. Level up is the terms that we've been using to say that we need inclusive growth. We can't have just two-tier societies where some benefit but many are left behind. And that's where we have a very strong common interest between the UK and Indonesia in creating inclusive economic growth. So that means really working with regional government like we're doing at the moment, engaging with the Bali government. And it's a problem that we face also in the UK. So we have real inequality in the United Kingdom. And we believe that working with others is also about sharing best practice, understanding how we achieve that. And that's another sector where we have a lot of sort of collaboration. I spoke already about what we do sort of to support the international rules-based system. So I will not say a lot more about this because I'm happy to pick it up in the questions. But trade, the WTO organization is one of the areas where we're engaging as we are through many of the other sectors. I do want, however, to say something about one of the biggest security challenges that we face at the moment, which is the way in which Russia has violated another country's sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine. And in our strong belief for the defense of the international rules-based system, as the United Kingdom, we have felt that we have a duty to support Ukraine in protecting its sovereignty from a brutal invasion. We are very grateful for the fact that Indonesia has also supported many of those discussions. We realize that it's been challenging for Indonesia throughout the G20. But I want to emphasize that anybody who thinks that Ukraine is very far away and it doesn't matter, ignore the global impact that this war is having. The invasion has led to increase in food prices, increase in energy prices, as Ukraine has found itself unable to export, suffering from the Russian blockade. And countries need to be coming together in support of what has been the most blatant violations of the UN Charter on the principle of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And again, I'd be very happy to take any question that people may have on this situation. So, in conclusion, let me say that Indonesia and the Indo-Pacific are a region with huge potential. I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to engage with you as the future of this country. I want to hear from you your questions, your reactions, your challenges, and I want that to be in the spirit of that deepening partnership that we are establishing with Indonesia, which is based on recognition that together we can face some of the global common challenges that will shape the future of the international system. Thank you very much for your attention. I remember from when I was a student, I found long lectures really difficult to focus on. So I've shortened my notes quite a bit. I would much rather have a question session and engage with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ibu Jenny, for very informative and very comprehensive presentations. I think I would like now to invite the students to ask the questions, because I think Ibu Jenny to sit here. Okay, so the UK's Indo-Pacific tilt is built on two foundations. Okay, the first one, that's the UK's possess the strengths that has been elaborated by Ibu Jenny in many areas, such as from education, the superpower of soft power, and then in technology and many others. And it is also built on the basis that UK, particularly with Indonesia, we face the same global challenges, and that's how then the UK's Indo-Pacific tilts will be built upon strengthening the active or mutual collaborations between Indonesia, and particularly how you are going to see the prospect, the opportunity in dealing with the UK Indo-Pacific tilts. Okay, so I would like to invite the questions from our student here. Would you like to stand up and shout your name?
Yes, okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Angel and I'm International Relations undergraduate. So my question is, you see, you stated that the global challenges is to level up the society, and you don't want an inclusive society, right? But we live in a capitalism world where we do businesses and etc. So is economic growth could distinguish this inclusive society? Because you see, today's situation, we have a lot of social class, such as middle class, upper class, and the lower class. So my question is there any way to avoid this inclusive society away from this economic growth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a question that's very close to my heart, because I really believe that we will not reach our full potential, be it the United Kingdom or any other country, unless we can create opportunities for everybody. And that means, the groups that are less well off, but also, women or people with disabilities. We need to absolutely find the ways in which growth is inclusive. Sorry, I'm just making sure that you can hear me with the noise. So there are research that has been conducted by think tank, by universities, shows that there are ways in which you can achieve this inclusive growth. And equipping people with the skills that empower them to take charge of their future is one of the really important aspects. And this is why we are putting a lot of emphasis on education, and particularly education and skills for the future, like digital skills, because if people can make an income through all the new opportunities that the digital world offers, that helps this leveling up. So creating the conditions for fair trade, creating the condition that enable every group in society to have meaningful employment is all part of what we aim to achieve in our focus on leveling up and establishing inclusive societies.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Jamie. I think another questions? Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the occasion, Ms. Joel. I would like to ask a question about regarding the thing I was most interested in. It's regarding education. So during your speech, you say that there are cheapening scholarships. I want you to elaborate more about that. Who can join? How can we join? And when I read about the Indonesia-UK roadmap, it says that there are touring schemes regarding scholarship. I would like to ask for you to elaborate more about that also. That is all. Thank you.
Well, so I'm delighted to hear that you are interested, because then I've done my job today, which is really to encourage people to be curious about those opportunities. There will be, as I understand, also an event here at the university at the beginning of December, where I think we will be able to talk more about those different schemes that we're offering. So I hope that will be a good opportunity. I would really encourage you to get in touch with our team here. We have a consulate or directly in Jakarta. You will also find information on the website where you can sort of find out more about how to apply. There's a range of scholarship. I think that cheapening is probably one of the best known one. And when I'm traveling, it's always my great pleasure if I can meet cheapening scholars, because they usually go on to do amazing things. And this is enabling scholars to do a one-year master's degree in the United States. So the cheapening scholarship pays for the one-year master to study. We have other schemes like the Great Scholarship, which is fairly new. It's probably a bit less well known, but enables students to go to universities across the United Kingdom. And there is indeed the touring scheme that you're mentioning. So the best way really is get in touch with the embassy. We've also got the British Council that enables supporting exchanges of students. Get in touch with the embassy, with the consulate, and they will be able to really point you to all the relevant schemes. But delighted to hear of your interest.
Yeah, we hope that many of our students will get the cheapening scholarships and other scholarships, okay?
And I also hope that we will have British students coming to study here in Bali.
Yes, of course.
If I had known that it existed, I would certainly have wanted to come to study here.
Okay, because Faculty of Social and Political Science, we already have one international programs that will be commenced in December. So we also very happy, very delighted to hear the opportunity. Okay, another questions, Ibu Jenny? Okay.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to ask before, and I think one of the alliance that are really close to us, that the UK and Australia and US initiated are the AUKUS. That one alliance, I believe it's one program are to create a nuclear boat, underwater boat, and I believe as Indonesia, and we are very close to Australia, it's somewhat kind of a security dilemma from us, because it's very near us, but it's also, I believe it's very good for the Australia and also the UK and the US. But yeah, I just want to ask you, Miss, about your opinion on that, and yeah, and can us feel like that, because it's just very close to us, and I think it's very scary. Yeah, thank you. My name is Bagas.
Thank you for raising that question. I think it's a really important one, and it's really important that people understand what AUKUS is, but also what it is not. So I think the first thing to really explain about AUKUS is that it is about nuclear propulsion. So there is no nuclear technology or nuclear component to the submarine. It's just about nuclear energy to move the submarine. So there has been, I know, some misunderstanding, and people think that it will contribute to proliferation of nuclear weapons, and this is absolutely not the case. It's purely about the way in which the submarine are being propulsed. It is an important statement of the alliance between the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom. It's also about sharing technology and learning, to operate together. And we see it very much as a contribution to what I mentioned during my speech, which is sustaining freedom of navigation and open regions and supporting an ally in their national security. This is also a sign of the commitment that we have to the peace and stability in the region over the long term. But I'm always very happy to answer questions, and if you want to discuss more after the session, don't hesitate to come and I can explain all the details. You can also find a lot of information if you go online. The leader statement explains every aspect of the AUKUS partnership, the different sector and what it does, and you will find all that information in our website. Thank you for the question.
I do have follow-up questions.
Do, please.
I'm sorry, but is it possible in the future that not only AUKUS but UK itself are creating partnership with Indo-Pacific that are on the military aspects, like maybe for peace and stability, as you said? Is it possible in the near future?
So we are interested in partnership and exchanges of technology, and we see that as part of providing, a stable international architecture in the region. The kind of cooperation that you can get through military program helps nations understand each other. They help being transparent about the capabilities that you develop. We are very committed to this principle of transparency. It is part of building trust between nations, and we see that as part of our contribution as a member of the Security Council with specific responsibilities to support, the UN Charter and the principle international peace and security, that we cooperate with other nations in also their sort of national security development.
Okay. Thank you, Bagas, for the question. There are several questions, Ibu Joel. It's okay? Okay. From this side? Okay.
Okay, thanks for opportunity has given to me. I'm Brian, and good morning everyone, and good morning Miss Jen. Thanks for coming here, by the way. So I'm a little bit curious about UK and Indonesian relation in facing climate change. Before you told us that Indonesian and UK has a problem about climate change. So one of the global challenging which faced by Indonesian and UK is climate change, right? Climate change happens because of many things happens in this world. For example, one case, there is intensive logging activities in East Kalimantan, which have turned its forest into a fire hazard, and forest fires are occurring more frequently. The smoke and ash from the forest fires affect the health of people nationally and regionally, and lead to a serious problem of Indonesia by neighboring countries. So my question, is there any action or cooperation between Indonesia and UK to against this case? I mean about forest protection or about anything about climate change. Thank you.
So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, this is really sort of one of the, areas of cooperation that we have with Indonesia, where we're very keen to support the Indonesian government in its ambitious targets around climate. We have quite a few different programs. A lot are about energy transition, because at the heart of addressing, I think, a lot of the climate aspects, all the nations need to have access to energy. And so working with Indonesia and thinking about what are the means of getting energy that is low carbon producing, that at the same time enables Indonesia to address, your development and economic growth objectives. So this is one of the areas where we've been working very closely. In the area of forestry, I know that we are also cooperating and we have various programs. What I would propose is that after the talk, we discuss sort of in detail, and I can give you sort of the list of the different kinds of engagements that we have to support this area. But the main thing for us has been in the context of the COP, the UN-led sort of processes, working with Indonesia to sort of support the achievement of ambitious targets on the whole climate area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Give applause for Brian.
Before I deliver my questions, can I deliver it with sitting down on my chair instead of standing up? Okay. I am Tari. Thank you for your attendance, Ma'am Jenny, in today's event, and a really comprehensive explanations that you have delivered before. As other fellow students have stated their own questions in social, educations, and security perspective. However, I am interested and curious in hearing your perspective towards renewable and sustainable source of energy, since you have stated before that the main issue that we're facing right now is to reduce the usage of coal and petroleum. As this is actually questions that a cousin of mine who is now studying in University of Victoria in mechanical engineering, which is developing a system or a machine in processing coconut shell into coal. So it's let's say it is a renewable energy. What I wanted to state here is that as a developing country, we cannot really reduce or replace the coal usage or petroleum, especially in the making of plastic, asphalt, and so far and so on. So how do you preview electricity or other renewable source of energy as our future in Indonesia? Is it just a mere hope for us, since electricity is actually really hard in here in Indonesia, especially for us as citizens, in the other perspective of the government, compared to other countries, other developing countries like Malaysia or Singapore, I believe. Is my question clear enough?
It is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it's great to hear that your cousin is working on those issues and that you're interested. Those are difficult questions, of course, because all the science demonstrates that if we continue with the same level of energy taken out of coal, we will not achieve the targets of keeping 1.5 degrees of warming within reach, right? So it is one of the sectors that is critical collectively for all of us, for our children, if you want a future that is not constantly affected by floods, by disastrous weather events, and that in itself will cost a lot to the GDP of all the countries. So we need collectively to work to find the solutions. We also recognize that it cannot be a trade-off. We are not telling any countries, you can't have the energy that you need for your development. You know, the energy is critical to growth, to the development of society. So that's why we are interested in partnering to think about what are the alternatives. And we in the United Kingdom have had to also get out of coal. We had entire communities in the north of the country where all the livelihood, all the economy, everything was sustained by coal, and it was a difficult transition. But today we have a lot of renewable energy that feeds into our grid. We're probably one of the world leading countries in sort of offshore wind turbine, for example. We have invested a lot in other sources of energy, and we are massively investing in science and technology to look for sort of other alternative solutions. And we are supportive Indonesia through the new partnership, the JETP, that is about helping Indonesia address its energy needs and doing the energy transition that the country requires to meet its own ambitious climate targets, while also finding the sources of energy that you need. We are doing a similar program in other countries, in Vietnam, for example, where we are co-leading negotiation with the EU and with the government of Vietnam to also establish a similar partnership to support those countries and bring a lot of investment from the private sector and investment in research and technology and in alternative energies to enable both meeting the energy needs and meeting the climate targets. I hope that answers your questions.
Okay. I think I would like to, before the end of our session, if you would like to have, okay, probably start.
Because thank you. My name is Agus. Here I wanna ask about the zero emission. As we know, Indonesia is targeting zero emission into 2060. What do you think about, in this case, in Indonesia, there's a lot of factories that produce a lot of emission. What is your view regarding this matter? And what the effort that have been made in the UK itself regarding to this matter? And what the advice can you give to Indonesian people and Indonesia itself about the zero emission target in 2060? Thank you.
Thank you. So, I mean, what we have done in the UK is, as I said, we've invested a lot to exit the coal sector, which was a very important sector of our economy. We have set targets through legislation that put also the responsibility on the private sector to find alternative ways of producing that are respectful of the environmental norms that we set. So we think the government has an important role in setting the legislative framework, setting the targets, and enabling the private sector to play a key part in the search for innovation and new technologies that enable meeting those emission targets. And the collaboration that we set up with countries around the world are a mixture of sharing our science and the evidence that we have on the climate impact, on what works, and supporting public-private partnership so as to enable industry but also the finance sector to play its part in raising the capital that you need to invest in different modes of production that are more aligned to meeting the climate, the emission targets for reduction. So it's quite a broad range. There is not one thing that is the solution. It is really about combining the science, research, legal environment, working with the private sector, and then exiting those sectors that are the most polluting and replacing them with new technologies that are more environmentally compatible with the objective of maintaining global climate warming at 1.5 degrees. And that's really the sort of partnership that we look forward to continuing to exchange with Indonesia. It has to be a journey. It has to be a continuous exchange.
Okay, thank you. Please give me the applause. The scholarship. So thank you once again, Ibu Jenny, for coming to visit us and give us the lectures. And I hope one day we can invite you again, okay, to have another sessions of lectures. So thank you so much, Ibu Jenny. I think the end of our general lectures today. Thank you so much for your participation.
And thank you very much for hosting me. I was very honored and I really enjoyed all the questions, and it's fantastic to hear all the questions about climate and environment. I found it very exciting. So all the very best wishes in your studies and in your future, and thank you again for making the time.
Okay, thank you.